Good morning. We're back out on this is Tuesday, and we're getting back on the truck this morning. I've done some work this morning, fine-tuning the 3x2 tubing for the bottom of the frame to thicken it up and strengthen it. So we'll go out now and we'll take a look at that, and I'll show you how I've got it in there. We're going to get ready to drill some holes to put the bolts through, and the spacers, the crush spacers, so that when you clamp this all together, it doesn't crush the tubes. So let's see what we got here. All right, here we are inside. I don't know if you can be able to see with the sun this way. We may have to come to the other side. This is the driver's side. Now you can see I've got these clamped in place, and I've got it marked out where that center line, that's where the bolts go through. That's where it ends up in the front, and that's the original frame, and we'll run bolts from here all the way through out the bottom into this mounting here, and that bolt will come up through, and there'll be a nut up here on the top. So it'll come through and clamp down that nut, and we've got to put a spacer, something in between here, to keep all this from collapsing when you tighten it down. All this from collapsing when you tighten it down. Okay. This is a pretty innovative design they did. Basically just a big clamp, because you've got a bracket at the bottom and you've got this bracket at the top right here, and you're just clamping it onto the frame. So it's really sweet for changing. You can put this front suspension underneath just about any truck, bolt right in. Well, you have to make holes and clamp. Now a newer truck has thicker frame. You probably wouldn't have to put these spacers under it. I think, oh yeah, you can see a lot better from this side. See, a newer truck would have a much thicker frame. You wouldn't have to put this big piece of 2x3 tubing in. I debated for a long time whether I was going to do 3-inch or 2-inch. I don't want to drop the truck too low. I don't want it laying in the weeds, as they say. But I don't want it to look like a truck either, so I want to get it down about what a car would ride at. And with this frame, as a tape measure, originally was down at 4.5 inches. And its thickest part, 6.5 inches. So we lose 2.5. We lose 2 inches here. So I just added an extra inch. So 1 inch one way or the other, really not going to be noticeable on a vehicle. You can make up that with your tire size, honestly. So the next thing to do now is to drill a hole all the way through that the bolt will go up through, and then I'm going to have to cut slots here in the top of this plate for this piece of pipe to go down through. I'm going to have to take it and grind off all of that galvanized, and we'll cut it in 7-inch pieces. We got 7 inches marked on there. 7-inch pieces, that's what it's going to take to go from the inside of this tube to here. This is thin wall tubing. You don't want to use thick wall tubing. I mean, you can do it, it won't hurt anything. It's just a bear to drill through and cut. Thin wall tubing is plenty strong enough and much easier to deal with. And so I got the center hole marked. That's where this plug goes up through there. It's like an alignment plug for when they manufacture these on the assembly line. That lines it up before they put the bolts in. And we'll do the same thing. We'll put a hole in there for it to be alignment. And once we get these tubes drilled and located, we'll drop the truck down onto the front suspension to see how everything lines up. And everything lines up well, and we're happy with that. We've got the crush tubes in. I'll go ahead and tack weld this in place and then bolt the whole thing together and get it down on the ground. Get it all, got it on jack stands right now, get it off the jack stands and see what the ride height looks like. And if we're happy with the ride height, and I do some measurements to make sure that the axle's centered in the truck, and we'll put the front end back on, make sure the wheels are centered in the fender wells, and if they are, then we'll take it back off and I'll burn that all in. You need to do some seriously good welding here. You can stitch weld it if you want, or you can weld it complete. I'm going to try to weld solid, at least on the ends, because you can see on this one here I left a little bit of a gap here. It's not horrible, but it's going to need to be filled. And the same thing here, I left a little bit of a gap. The other side's tight, this side's a little loose, but that's an easily fillable gap. The welder will go right over top of that, fill that right in. Now, on the inside, we did a much better job. We have a much tighter gap on the inside. This is the driver's side again. Just see the gap is not as severe as it was on the outside. There we go. We'll just tack that all in and we'll be ready to move on to the next step. And once that's bolted in and tacked in, then we gotta cut plates to box in that upper frame to give it some more strength. That's not for the front end. The crush tubing will take care of that. To strengthen up the frame so it doesn't torque with a much bigger engine. And this thing came out with like 60 horsepower, 80 horsepower. The new motor is going to have 300. So you need to beef all that up and fill in. We talked about yesterday filling in all them holes. So that's where we're at. That's how far I've gotten so far this morning. I'm going to look about bringing out the drill press and punching these holes through. And when I get that out here and set up, I'll show you that action. Okay, bye for now.